Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. And today we are going to Oz,
To Oz.
but not just for a, walk down the yellow brick road.
Right.
We are going to really get into the characters of Wicked.
Yes, we're going deep
We are going deep.
with an academic text that analyzes the themes and symbolism
Oh, wow.
of the main characters.
Okay, so we think we know.
You might think you know these characters,
Right.
but I think there's a lot more to uncover.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's what makes it so interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just good versus evil.
Absolutely.
It's like these characters deal with real-world stuff, like prejudice and social pressure and, consequences of their choices.
Yeah, and it's that depth that makes Wicked so enduring
Right.
and timely.
Totally. Yeah.
So let's start with Elphaba.
Okay.
Now, her green skin is often seen as just like a symbol of difference.
Right.
Right? But the text we have goes a little bit deeper.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How so?
Well, think about it. Green skin, in the context of the story, it evokes a sense of unease,
Okay.
even fear.
Oh.
It's not just that she's different.
Uh-huh.
It's that her difference is unsettling,
Interesting.
like society's fear of the unknown.
That's a really good point. It's not just about being different. It's how that difference is perceived and used against her.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this fear of the unknown, this tendency to demonize what we don't understand, has very real-world parallels.
Oh, yeah.
If you think about historical witch hunts,
Right.
the persecution of those who didn't conform to social norms,
Right.
Elphaba's green skin becomes this powerful visual representation of that very human tendency to fear and ostracize the other.
Wow. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just that she's different, society makes her different a problem.
Yeah, and then there's that label,
Yeah. Wicked.
Wicked.
Right.
The text argues that that's not just a name, it's a weapon used to control and silence her.
But isn't there an argument to be made that some of her actions are kind of, well, a little wicked? I mean, she does make some morally questionable choices.
She does.
Right.
But the play makes us question who gets to define wickedness.
Right.
Is it her defiance of unjust norms?
Okay.
Her use of power?
Uh-huh.
Or simply society's fear of a woman who refuses to be controlled?
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many Elphabas are out there in our own world, being silenced and marginalized because they don't fit in.
Exactly.
Right.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Glinda.
Okay.
She's everything that Elphaba is not.
Right.
Popular, beautiful, and privileged.
Yet the good witch.
Yes. On the surface, at least.
Right. But even, I can see there's more to her than that. What does the text say about her complexity?
Well, it dives into how Glinda's privilege, while seemingly a blessing, becomes a burden.
Okay.
She's trapped in this gilded cage of expectations, forced to conform to maintain her position.
So it's not just that she benefits from the system, she's limited by it.
Exactly. And her relationship with Elphaba becomes this catalyst for her to start questioning those limitations.
Interesting.
You remember that moment in the play when Glinda chooses to distance herself from Elphaba even though she knows it's wrong?
Yes. It always felt like a turning point for them.
The text argues that this decision wasn't just personal betrayal, but a representation of how societal pressures can force even well-intentioned individuals to compromise their values.
It's like she's constantly having to choose between what's easy and what's right.
Yeah.
But isn't there an argument to be made that her privilege blinds her to the extent of Elphaba's suffering? I mean, how much can she really understand what Elphaba's going through?
That's a valid point. The text does acknowledge that Glinda's understanding of Elphaba's struggles is limited by her own experiences.
Yeah.
And that this ultimately contributes to the tragic breakdown of their friendship.
It's fascinating how Wicked makes us reevaluate these seemingly straightforward characters.
Absolutely. And we haven't even touched on the other players in this story.
Let's get into that. I'm already hooked.
Great. Then let's take a closer look at Fiyero, the seemingly shallow prince who finds himself drawn to both Elphaba and Glinda.
Okay.
His journey is one of self-discovery and ultimately choosing love and values over societal expectations.
Fiyero.
Yeah.
Yeah, he starts off as this carefree prince, right?
Yeah.
But then he really changes as the story goes on.
He does. And the text argues that his transformation is fueled by his love for Elphaba.
Okay.
He's one of the few characters that see past the green skin,
Right.
past the label of wicked, recognizes her intelligence, her strength, her passion.
It's like he sees the real Elphaba,
Yeah.
the person underneath.
Exactly. And his decision to be with her, to choose her over the expectations of his world
Yeah.
comes at a price.
Right, it does. It
Yeah.
makes you think about the choices we make in our own lives, right? Like, how
Yeah.
often do we just go along with what's expected,
Right.
even when it means sacrificing our own happiness or going against what we believe?
Yeah. That's a really good point. It takes courage to go against what's expected,
It does.
to choose love and personal values over tradition and societal pressure.
Totally.
And in Fiero's case, that courage comes with sacrifice.
Yeah. Speaking of challenging choices, let's talk about Elphaba's sister, Nessarose.
Yes.
She's another character that's hard to really define.
Right.
You see her struggling with her own limitations
Yeah.
and her bitterness, and ultimately her descent into what some people would say is wickedness.
Yeah, and Nessarosa's story is really fascinating because it explores the complexities of power and how it can corrupt even those who start off with good intentions.
Okay.
The text points out that Nessarose, like Elphaba, experiences marginalization. She's
Right.
born without arms,
Right.
and that really shapes how she sees the world,
Right.
her resentment, and ultimately her choices.
So in a way, both sisters are dealing with what it means to be different,
Yes.
but they make very different choices.
Exactly. Elphaba embraces her difference and challenges the system that wants to define her.
Right.
Nessarose, on the other hand, internalizes her pain and lashes out when she finally gets power.
It makes you wonder if her story is like a warning about what can happen when we just let bitterness and resentment fester.
Yeah.
What happens when we want power not to help others, but to get back at those who we think hurt us?
Yeah, the text suggests that Nessarose's story is a warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition, the corrosive nature of resentment. It highlights how important it is to find healthy ways to deal with our pain
Right.
and the need to direct our anger toward positive change instead of revenge.
It's a reminder that even those who have been treated unfairly can end up doing unfair things themselves
Exactly.
if they're not careful.
If they're not careful.
Right. And then there's Madame Morrible,
Madame
the
Morrible.
ultimate manipulator pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Right. The text describes her as the embodiment of ambition and moral decay.
Yeah.
She's the puppet master manipulating both Elphaba and Glinda for her own benefit.
She's a scary example of how power can be used to take advantage of others and how people in authority can abuse our trust.
Uh-huh.
But she also represents something bigger, doesn't she?
Yes.
Something about the systems themselves.
Yes. You're right. Madame Morrible doesn't just operate in a vacuum.
Right.
She thrives in a system that rewards ambition no matter the cost.
Wow.
She represents the dark side of Oz,
Yeah.
the corruption that's embedded in their society.
It makes you realize that Elphaba is not just up against individuals like Madame Morrible,
Right.
but like a whole system
Yes.
that's rigged against her.
A system that rewards conformity and punishes those who are different.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what makes Wicked so interesting.
Right.
It's not just personal struggle.
It makes us think about the systems we live in.
Yeah, it forces us to look at the systemic issues that cause injustice and oppression.
Absolutely.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what are the big takeaways, the things you really hope listeners will understand?
Well, first, I hope listeners will understand that the characters in Wicked are way more complex than they first appear. They challenge our easy assumptions about good and evil.
Right.
They remind us that even those who seem wicked might be driven by good intentions.
Right.
And that those who appear good can do harm by not acting or going along with unfair systems.
It's like the play saying, don't judge a book by its cover or a witch by her color.
Exactly. The second thing is the play highlights the power of perspective.
Okay.
Seeing the story through the eyes of those who are marginalized helps us understand their choices
Right.
and the challenges they face.
Uh-huh.
It encourages us to question our own biases,
Yeah.
to be more empathetic.
It reminds us that there's always more than one side to every story.
Right. And finally, Wicked makes us think critically about the systems we're a part of.
Oh, okay.
What injustices do we help to continue by what we do or don't do?
Right.
How can we work to create a fairer world for everybody?
That's really the heart of it, isn't it?
Right.
Wicked is not just a fantasy story.
No.
It's a call to action. It reminds us that we all have a part to play in fighting injustice and building a better world.
And now, I believe you have a final thought-provoking question for our listeners.
I do.
Yes, I do. So knowing what we now know about these characters, their motivations, the systems they're dealing with,
Yeah.
I want you to think about this. Do the labels of good and wicked really mean anything? And what does that say about how we judge other people in our own lives?
That's a really powerful question to leave our listeners with.
Yeah, it really challenges us to think about the complexities of human nature
Right.
and how easily we can get caught up in simple labels.
Totally. Wicked reminds us that people are rarely all good or all bad.
Right. We're all a mix of light and shadow.
Yeah. Shaped by our experiences.
Our choices, the systems we live in.
And maybe the most wicked people are the ones who challenge the way things are,
Yeah.
who dare to question authority and fight for what they believe in.
Even if it means going against the grain.
That's the amazing thing about Wicked.
It leaves us with more questions than answers.
It does.
It really makes us think critically about the world around us and to see things from the perspective of those who are often silenced.
It's a reminder that the best stories are the ones that make us think,
Yes.
that challenge what we believe.
And then stay with us.
Yeah, long after the curtain falls.
So if you're looking for a story that will spark your imagination and make you think about things in new ways,
And challenge your perspective.
yeah, I highly recommend checking out The World of Wicked.
You might just find yourself rethinking everything you thought you knew about good and evil,
About power and privilege.
and about the choices we all make when we see injustice.
And who knows, you might even discover a little bit of Elphaba and Glinda in yourself.
That's it for our deep dive into Wicked Anyone. We hope you had fun exploring these characters and the thought-provoking themes of this amazing story.
And remember, the journey doesn't stop here.
Keep questioning, keep exploring,
Keep defying gravity.
in your own pursuit of knowledge and understanding.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy deep diving.